The topic is role of human ethics in social media content creation. And for the same, I would like to introduce the speaker, Mr. Vijaybahu Joshi, a seasoned professional with 24 years in creative automation, experience design and branding specialization in artificial emotional interactivity, CX audit, design MIS, interaction design, experience centers, brand DNA analysis, and cognitive branding. Presently, AVP Head of Experience Design at Geo Platform Limited. He holds a master's in design from IIT Bombay and a bachelor's in architecture from the School of Planning and Architecture, New Delhi. He is a visionary shaping exceptional experience in branding and design. Ladies and gentlemen, please join me in welcoming Mr. Vijaybahu Joshi, AVP, Head of Experience Design at Geo. Let's have a huge round of applause for him.
Am I audible there? Yeah. I usually ask for a post-lunch session because what is reaching you is a kind of a shocker. So please put on your seatbelts. This is more of a personal journey as a designer. It's nothing to do with the work I'm currently at Geo. A lot of my Geo colleagues are here. But we sincerely hope someday whatever I'm sharing with you becomes the mainstream. Now, one disclaimer, whatever is coming to you always belong to you. I'm just a medium. So it's a knowledge piece which is reaching you, and after 20 minutes, it will forever belong to you. So it was never mine. So it's a very, very strong words I'm coming with. It was never mine. I'm just a medium. Okay, it's just reaching you because you are the selected one right now. Now, there are two possible ways we accept this content, and the content is, you have read it out, it's about human and environment biases in the way and the kind of effect it has on the process of content creation. We are talking about content creation which is consumed by consumers, and then consecutively we reach a process or a stage called as customer loyalty, right? What all happens behind the scenes, something which was a very esoteric knowledge, will reach a kind of a practical session. So I'll also ask you to do some things in between. Just be a little sport, whosoever can do that, right? And there is a science behind that. So two possible ways to accept this content. One is prejudice or through skepticism. There are two types of prejudices. Normally this content will force you to take these sides. Within prejudice you will have two sides. So there is one side which is called as the far left wing, where you will say, okay, I don't agree with that at all. On the far right, we call this the right wing ideology. You will say, yes, I agree with it. Right? And somewhere in between, which was the so-called the existence of our civilization, which is called as skepticism, where you thok bajao everything, you test it out and you say, okay, yeah, I have tested this, let me, proceed with a skeptical mind. So that's a kind of a outlay. Since this is a post-lunch session, I will have to do a small activity. I'm just so sorry. Please bear with me. We'll have to do that, right? So I'll request all of you to just start shaking your hands, right? Just do that if possible. Just keep your pen and paper down. Right? Just start shaking. Yeah, do that. Just go up, come down, go up, come down for a while, right? Do that. As you are shaking, close your eyes, stop shaking, keep your hands on your thighs facing upwards, right? Please close your eyes. Keep on taking deep breaths, right? I'll give you a few instructions now. What we are doing now is we'll go through a memory test. As you open your eyes, I'll expose you to 30 words, then followed by 5 images, right? Now these will start sinking in your short-term memory, and then if possible going a little more deeper as well, right? As you proceed ahead, we will go through some theoretical framework, and then we'll see what happens with this data that I've planted as a little seed inside my subconscious mind. This will just make you aware at the end of 20 minutes what kind of biases we carry, okay? Yeah. So here are your words, you can open your eyes, right? Set of 30 words, few seconds to memorize. Alright, I'll expose you to 5 images, and this will be for a lesser brief second. Memorize the text, memorize the details as much as you can. I'm just so sorry for people who thought their education is done. Some part is pending. Few more seconds on this slightly complicated one. Okay. I'll begin with a true story. It will give you a kind of a context of why this session is there and what kind of impact we have as content creators, or I would say as designers, or as product designers in our society. Try and resist not to write. It's a very, very normal Indian thing. Somebody will just sneak out a pen and paper, and just to write. Don't do that. It's for your own self right now. So I'll begin with the story. I was teaching in an advertising college way back in 2008, and I'd given a small assignment. The assignment was you had to come out with a character sketch for an ad film. It was a 30-second ad film. I'm from advertising. It's the most common assignment I could have given. The client is LSE Housing Finance till about 13 to or about 20 lakh rupees. So effectively looking at a lower middle class strata kind of a segment. Bunch of students were supposed to come out with an ad and which all characters will play in an ad. Man, animal, anything like that. Now this was the beginning of this research work which started. What people came up with was very, very, of course, common. They had working husband, a housewife, a woman which was a housewife, a kid, 3 to 5 year old by the name of Rahul, Aryan, Ishan, right? So what actually stuck my head was this particular pattern. While a working man or a house lady, we were kind of used to, but this particular sequence kind of just hit my head. And I saw a very strong bias. We are talking about 95% modern students just suggesting that in their ad film, they will have a boy protagonist. No offenses to boys, no offenses to girls out here, but why a boy child? They had no answers to that. And why the typecasting of a name like Rahul, Aryan, Rohan, from where this was coming. So I checked, did somebody teach you that you need to have a boy child? No religious institutions were teaching, neither education institutions were teaching, from where all this pattern was coming. That led me to this little query. I started scanning the environment, right? And between 2006 and 2008, I did my own individual study, right, to come up with stocking factors, which is 84%, because this was majority of the media then. We are talking about, of course, OTT content right now, films expose you for 2.5 to 3 hours, but the repetition rate is very less as compared to an advertisement which is bombarded to us at multiple times of a day. Many times we think we are not noticing. That is what you will see today, whether who notices and how it gets into a brain. So 84% of TV aired in between 2006 and 2008 had a male protagonist. Typical names Rahul, Rohan. Ishan entered into the lexicon after the super hit of Tare Zameen Pe. You're aware of that. One of the most interesting factor was none of the advertisements, barring 6% had, 6 to 8% roughly, had parents, grandparents as part of their setup. So what happens in case if we keep on getting exposed to a husband, wife and a boy child, or a husband, wife and a male and a female child, right? What kind of impressions our brain create and what kind of decisions we eventually create. So we had one live example there right now where a bunch of students thought it's okay to have a boy protagonist, right? And they never thought from where it was coming, and here is some part of the data. And this is of course debatable, but there are various other factors. Let's go now a little more deep into that. This is the overall journey of the biases formation. This is how we learn and pick up things. The first is like a session like this, where you are doing some things experientially, you are listening to a human being, right? This is the first way we learn and pick up things. Other are through day-to-day interactions with our family, friends, society, auto rickshaw wala, cabbie, anybody, right? That's one part. Third is what we talk about. You are listening to the session in between, you are just also listening to me and you're browsing your phone as well. That is called as involuntary, or throughout this space, you see this branding, which is there on the left and the side. So the peripheral vision kind of, captures that part as well, and we'll later on see that kind of effect. This point onwards, your prejudice versus skepticism mind will seep in. That what are the other ways? So one is inheritance from parents. Then as you enter your mother's soul at about 3 or 4 months, that is when you start picking data. We know about that factor as well, right? Then your experiences from dreams. You have heard a lot of scientists that I was in a dreamy state and I got this algorithm cracked up, right? So that means there is some connect, the Wi-Fi connect which was going on. This is again subjective. This part is around your sectarian beliefs. Few people believe this is fundamentally, quote unquote, the rebirth theory. Few people believe, few don't believe. So if you read Sai Charitra, Baba speaks about something called as a prarabdha theory, which is 2 plus 1. So whatever you carry right now is your past 2 births and this life's 1 birth. That makes it a 2 plus 1 kind of a pair. And so you see this prodigies happening where somebody is playing tabla at 3 years, somebody is playing, guitar, at that year, right? Or somebody is able to speak 5 languages when they were 5 years old, right? So few of the theories get answered over there, but again, this is depending on your subjective mind, prejudice versus your skepticism. Like, again, 2 parts to prejudices. Then you have deep-rooted cravings. It's like this theory is connected in Vipassana or remedified in Vipassana, where you identify what are the things which I have done as past life mistakes. Maybe I was angry at 15 births. So that means anger is your this life's problem, or I'm too attached to people, I'm unable to let them go. So you take birth to get that settled, and in Vipassana that emotion enters your body, right? And you dissolve that. It's a sometimes very painful process, sometimes very comical process. I've personally been through that, and hence I'm kind of, talking. So 2 months ago I was in a Vipassana session for 1 day where my lower body was completely paralyzed. I had to wait for about half an hour, 1 hour to actually get for a help because some emotion, some past karma would have entered, right? I couldn't dissolve it on time and I sought out for help. Since I'd seen people in that condition, I was okay with that. Now the original software soul, we'll also find some relevance over there, which is your love, compassion and all. Why we keep on, hinging back to that point. Today's session is fundamentally about the red area, which you see that experiences from non-sensory. Experiences from sensory, we are aware. You go to a theme park, you watch a movie, these are all sensory experiences, listening to a song. But this session is more about what we are unable to see or hear. Okay? Now, this is the way I am currently trying to teach you or trying to inform you something, right? Which is like I speak a language, you have your faculties which are open, you know the language and you're able to understand the message, right? Depending on an age group. Suppose I teach the same subject to a 2-year-old or a 3-year-old who understands Hindi or English, but may not be able to grasp it. You are with me on this, right? So this is a more tangible way of sound and then going to air as a medium and then again entering your earlobes and then getting deciphered in your brain, right? This is one method. This is another method. Do we get any message from these images? Answer is yes, right? To someone, the left hand side one may look like angry and right hand side may look like sensuous, depending on what age group you are. To a 3-year-old, the right hand side may or may not really look that way, right? Of course, there is now subjectivity entering, but this is a space of non-verbals, quote unquote. We'll go a little more ahead. Now, I'll speak about a story where we'll see this in a true story format. So this story happened in the camp of Brahma Kumaris. It was a group of merchants who attended a camp in Mount Abu. One particular diamond merchant was constantly having this dream that he is roaming around the streets of Surat and he's trying to beg for 15,000 rupees. And he didn't have enough money. And he approached the teacher who they call as Didi, that is this my future? Is this what I'll become after doing meditation? Is that what I'll receive, right? So teacher was also quizzed, but incidentally that teacher same evening went to the kitchen and he saw that lady cooking who was extremely worried. She asked, what happened? She said, Didi, my landlord has asked me to vacate my juggi or the shanty, right? I need 15,000 rupees and for last 1 week I'm just, moving here and there and I'm not getting that money, right? So with that thought, she was daily cooking that food 3 times a day. Incidentally, this poor man, whatever you call it, brain possibly deciphered that signal. This is one part of the story, but this is a true story. Now we'll see, as I would say, modern Mumbai individuals, we want more proof to this. So I am here with the proof. So this proof now in the first part comes from Japan. This is again a life story. Now we'll start entering into the scientific realm, where two villages were at war with respect to the sharing of a water body. So one village was deep into meditation, the other never meditated. So the ones who used to meditate, what they did was they started talking to water with a lot of compassion and love, right? And that water, once over a period of time, got consumed by the other part of the village, their conflict settled. Of course, there's a cue for our own states in that, but let's see what happened in that. So what you see on the left hand side top is a water crystal which is before charging. So something which has gone through a lot of agony, that agony got documented. So water has this beautiful capacity to respond to human emotions, and the record, even the expression of that human emotion for a period starting 4 days to 8 days. There are few glaciers where it stretches up to 30 days. I'm referring to Gangotri right now. So here, if you talk to the same water with a lot of love and compassion, its crystals start becoming beautiful, and from silver to golden range, they behave. Something like what you see on the right hand side bottom, which is a water charged crystal charged with love and compassion. Okay, you're with me on this? So a piece of emotion going onto water, getting documented as a hard disk, and then consumed by other person, not knowing what is happening to the person, and the person feeling the same feeling, right? Now, incidentally, when the research was going on, I also stumbled upon the Natya Shastra, the Navarasa theory. How many have heard of this theory? The 9 rasas, right? Or the 9 emotions. So, we know those Navarasas, but very few of us knew that there are colors associated with those rasas, right? So, in a research, we stumbled upon this part, which is all the emotions that you call as heavy emotions, right? They were heavy in color, and the lighter emotions were lighter in color, right? From Virya, to your, wanderers, to peace, Now, while this was 4th century, it's a very intriguing question came in, how did people see that, right? So while reading Celestine Prophecy by James Redfield, we came across this account, of course it's a fictional book, where the monks, they were able to see that radiation coming from human body. That means there is some fact to it, right? But how do we validate it? So while doing Reiki in 2006, and this was way back, I stumbled upon this organization, which is Reiki Healing Foundation. They created a device called as DAS, Digital Aura Scanner. It is based on the concept of Kirlian photography, which was there in 1864. It had various versions, but it never became mainstream. So what they did was, they patented that device, and then now they go around and they track that emotion in terms of its, I would say, that aura energy kind of format. We got exposed to this while watching Predator. If you have seen Predator, the guy used to change lenses, and then, various radiations, and, used to just come up. Right? So what is very interesting is, if you see something which is the hard emotions, they are pretty much around the same color area. I'll skip rest of the part. So you see something called as a red soil on the left hand side. It is a beautiful garden, but on that particular garden, possibly a lot of wars would have taken place, a lot of agony. So by the virtue of water content, that emotion got kind of settled over there. Similarly, you'll find this invariably happening. You are in extremely bad mode, you'll say mountains are calling. Why mountains are calling? Because they carry that charge which will replenish whichever discharge you are having. So the inner mind kind of knows about it, and they'll find the shortest possible means. Case 1. Case 2. You've had relatives in your childhood whom you felt like visiting. You always knew that you'll be down and low, you'll go and sit next to that person, you'll feel comfortable. Vice versa, there were people you don't feel like sitting next to. This is one of the inner logics, that body is emitting something which is against your natural aura energy biological system, right? So we'll go ahead now from there. So from a product design science, like the way it used to happen, like when we were researching this aspect, why prayers used to be there. If you go to any Hatkarga Udyog in UP, whether it's Hindus or Muslims, they firstly go into prayers, deep meditation. While working, they're into meditation, and eventually from a red zone, they enter into this quiet, yellow or white zone, and that goes into that product. That white, peaceful stuff goes into product, and hence we say, hey, let's have a handmade product, right? We feel that connect with that handmade product, right? If you have a factory cooked chapati by machines versus something which is cooked by a mother, somehow that is slightly more tasty, right? Okay. Now the same concept of food then was further experimented as a real life concept by the Brahma Kumari Foundation, and that this is a naive known research. There are a lot of theory papers available, but not in the mainstream media. You can look up for them yourself. It's called as yogic farming. So what they did was, we had this chemical farming on the far left, then we had this organic farming, and then they came up with something called as a yogic farming. Objective was just to clearly see what kind of input versus output we get, what kind of cost we are incurring, how much of water it is being absorbed. So what they did was they devised various methods for this yogic farming, in which suppose there are 3 or 4 main stages. One is, I'll only talk about one, which is the seed germination phase. So seed is like this little potential thing. They'll talk to the seed for 2 or 3 months, which sound very funny. They'll talk to the seed, hey, you'll grow very well, you'll do good to the humanity, you're a cute little baby. They'll talk to the seed like that. For 2 months or 3 months they'll talk, and then they go and plant a seed. Then they'll talk to rodents, they'll talk to insects. So it's like a synchronized process. They'll remember the prayer when the entire batch of farmers will talk depending on what phase of the growth that plant is. Whether it's the bloom phase or it's the initial phase, they'll talk to water, right? They talk to everything. One of the biggest benefit that area has when meditation entered, their alcohol consumption came down and their domestic fight and violence against women came down. That was a byproduct. But let's look at the ROI factor. So then they tested in the real market, they kept the chemically procured growth, whatever you call this, grown product on the left hand side, the organic in the center, and on the far right they kept the yogic farming. Without telling anybody that which product is what. In the market, they noticed over a period of 1 month that on the far right, which was grown with a lot of love and compassion, people used to pick that up first. It was invariably very healthy. They don't know why. But this inner intuition, whatever we have, the same way when you actually find the hills are calling, they got connected to that fruit or vegetable and they picked that up first. It's 30% cheaper than organic and 70% cheaper than chemical farming, right? Water spreads more, okay? So from here we started with this concept of good emotions versus good theory, and I'll conclude this part with the end as well, right? Some more, data to work. But do we really need to bother about these unseen emotions? Part answer is yes, because we're about 60% water. While roaming around streets, consuming things, we absorb these emotions. You can't change that, right? And that is what was happening in that particular belt, where the girls said, and this was 98% girls, by the way, the batch I was teaching, who said they want a boy as a protagonist in their advertisement, right? You know about this, you can just read it. These were our age-old conventions all across religion, society, and customs. You pray before you food because you eat, because you want that to go, that kind of emotion to your food, right? You have the prayer rooms next to kitchen, not the bathroom, right? It's there in many societies, right? Water available in rituals. All this was tied up around water, right? You'll find this invariably in all cultures. It's nothing to do with us. You go to Aboriginals in Australia or the Amazonites, like they have water as one of the central worshipping entities, and it used to really help them. Okay. Now I'll talk about this piece very, very briefly. It's slightly scary. I enter into a sort of a nervous disorder, and I also checked with other people as well. Don't look up for these terms openly on internet. It's my humble request. It's not about dark internet. It's about what kind of site you are accessing and what kind of unseen emotions you are downloading from there. So I'll just brief about one. So this technology is there to control people, which is called as V2K. It's mainly an army-led technology development, where if you have got a batch, this was first tested in Afghanistan on 1 lakh people on a certain radio frequency wave. You send out the radiations of depression, suicidal tendency, and give up. You do it only for 10 days, the entire batch of people came out, they just gave up their arms, we don't want to fight, right? And we have this thing, if you know about the red and the black theory, if your room decor is red and black, invariably you will go into a state of a depression, right? So there are various theories. I'll only speak about something which is called as synesthesia. Synesthesia is a very smart technique where suppose you want to taste butter chicken without putting on the calories. So what you do is you devise a sound technique, you hear that sound, and your sound will turn to your taste buds and you will start tasting butter chicken. So you hear something, so one sense to other is what synesthesia is all about, and vice versa, okay? So again, don't, please, my humble request, you call me, I'll talk about it, right? But don't look up yourself. It has some kind of an effect on your nervous system without you knowing about it. Okay, till now what we spoke, messages travel via medium, air, water, whatever, right? You can speak, if you think, even that gets transferred, right? That is one, and the brain has the capacity to decipher that, right? That is the concluding part. Now part C is, our bias is so bad. Like if this travels so fast, I'm unaware, why the nature gave us this takat, or the strength to absorb all of this, right? So what I'll do is, I'll flash a very simple image before you for just less than 1 second, and we'll quickly discuss that. How much time we are? Yeah. It's done? Uh, sure? We'll have a veto. How many of you want me to continue? Yeah. You're fine with it? Yeah? 2 minutes. Okay, fine. Okay. Yeah, thank you. Yeah. So I'll just expose an image and we'll talk about it. You saw that? What was there? There's bike. Okay. Right. So we know it's a bike. Okay. It was a regular sequence like 2 people, 3 people or more? More. Urban setting or a rural setting? Day or night? Man driving or a woman? With helmet? Without helmet? Bandra kids or someone like suburban kids? Okay. Teenagers or younger kids? Bike going left to right or right to left? So was it a skyscraper in the background or green fields? If I ask 20 more questions, your brain will respond, right? And this is less than 1 second, right? It is much beyond the comprehension of human brain, what it absorbs. Believe me, we can go on for 1 hour on that image. That is the potential of human brain, depending what you are exposed to, right? So now if this is this fast is the brain, why God has given this, right? The answer is very, very simple. It's called as survival factor. We inherited something called as a reptilian brain, and our 90% brain is still the reptilian brain, which helps us to survive in hostile conditions, only managing 3 factors, which is food, reproduction, and threat, right? Let's see this. What is this? We'll say it's tiger. How many of you have actually seen this tiger every day in and out? Right? You know, you just walked out and you petted a tiger and moved on, right? Nobody. But we still recognize that, right? And this also sends a bit of a, I would say, chill down the spine, those who are, sitting in the front, because we inherited that software. Our fear for snakes, scorpions, anything. We don't fear deer. Why? We just go ahead. But nobody has ever had a case where the family was, kind of abducted by a tiger. I'll show you one more image and then you try and see whether, what kind of software we have. Do you know what is this? You interact with this object day in and day out, but still it's not recorded because it's not a threat data, right? This is the bottle. None of us have a top-down view of a bottle recorded in the brain because nobody ever threw a water bottle at you, right? It's not there. So we inherited a jungle software. It has its own pattern of working. Now we are about to just conclude in last 1 minute. 99% of decisions are only on the basis of our survival factor, right? That is why we do office politics and all that. I'll come to that part, quickly. Yeah. Now, we'll see what happened to the data which I planted at the beginning of the session. I request you to draw 2 visuals which you remember quickly in 10-15 seconds and write as many words as you can. Whose session is next? I would like to apologize. He's my senior from Reliance. You can take something over there. Oh, pen. Just draw 2 quick diagrams, right, which you can recall at the top of your head and write as many words as you can, right. Okay, can we have the word counts in case if you're able to recollect how many words you can write? 6? 5, fantastic. 5, 6. Okay, right. Great. This is called as a plus minus 9 theory. I'll talk about it quickly, briefly via the Atkins 2-brain model. You're done with your images? Can you just look around what people have drawn in case? Okay, how many of you have drawn the AT&T? Okay, and the W-shaped one? Okay, so as per the research, these 2 are the most common ones at the top of recall because it requires that 4 to 6 bit of a data, right? And how many of you had Salman Khan? Now, it's not that we really like that character or we don't like it. Your brain decided in the spur of a moment as per the data calculation and the consumption and the body maintenance, right, that this is a recall that the brain has to give to us, and it reached your conscious mind, which is the neocortex, right? This is one of the stifling factors for innovation, that we normally come out with something which is the most obvious solution. Okay, now you got the point that 99% is trash due to the limbic brain. It has its own algorithm of picking things from the environment, right? That is where I'm coming at. This is the model which is called as Atkins two-brain theory. The first is the sensory buffer. It holds the data for 250 milliseconds. Whatever you had been doing for the last half an hour, holding the fork or the spoon, putting that in the mouth, chewing it, everything was done by you. Everything was done by your brain, right? In a processed order, in a parallel track, but you don't remember the data. We don't remember what shirt I had worn 20 days back, or what breakfast I had. I only remember that for next few minutes or half an hour or maximum one day. Any data which is the threat data or around that food reproduction or threat enters into STM, which is called as the short-term memory data. If you repeat that data time and again, which is somebody slapped you, somebody abused you, and mainly the negative data enters, it enters into the first quadrant of the long-term memory called as a recent memory. Recent memory is the one due to which India succeeded. So you learned a geography lesson yesterday, it is available next day till about 8 hours. That is recent memory. Right? You put another thing on top, that data goes away. Now, any data that you repeat again in recent memory, it will enter into your long-term memory, and no amount of power can remove that data. That is why you remember, you told me this, आप उस दिन भी देरी से आए थे, आप हमेशा यही करते हो. Like, that is the long-term memory data. Right? You only need a stick on your head, वो जो coma में हम चले जाते हैं, to forget that, but it's not a very good technique, believe me, there are other ways to do that. Right? Okay, last slide. I'm really scared of this kids here. So, this is your concluding slide, right? So there is something called as Swabhav, Swa as in I, and Bhav as in my emotion, and Swadharma. So the conflict we have as part of the customer service delivery is very, very simple. You have got a company which is into extreme sports. Very, very, I would say, energetic field, adventure sports, and you have got people, right from the top to the designers, who are a little lethargic in nature. They're music lovers, right? So from an emotion perspective, what happens? They're on the little right hand side. Broadly on the right hand side. Oh, I thought you cut off my electricity. Okay. Okay. So they'll never be able to do justice. So what happens, like, you identify what is your innate nature. If you're aggressive, you identify a workforce area which is like army or something which gives that vent out to you. So Amish, in this beautiful book called as Shiva Trial, speaks about the dissonance in society. Very, very beautifully says what happens when aggressive people become doctors and when calm people become police people. Right? They're unable to do justice to their job because it's their innate nature, deep inside, which is very calm and comfortable. They're unable to slap somebody or do something very, very hard. Right? So there are now courses in the country. One organization who does that course is called as Soul Temple. It takes about 6 months, residential course, about 2 lakh rupees, 2.5 lakh rupees, where they help you discover your inner self, which is this one, your innate nature. And then over a period of course, by staying in various ashrams and XYZ, you identify what should be the work area such that you can fulfill your destiny. Believe me, this is the reason why HR has a lot of issue, because you resigned, because it was against your nature. People didn't know about it. So to conclude, environment affects me. I've got a default software. The chairs which I sit on, it affects me. And I've got my own original behavior from that, I would say the original theory of what I came in this birth for, whether to tame this sense or that sense or my kharcha pani, whatever it is, right? That is where it happens. So now there are avenues. So whenever you have any dissonance, you can just remember this part slide, that I am part of this particular group of emotions. Is there a way I can shift to that side? It's very easy from right to push over to left, but it's very difficult from left to push over to right. One last example. So it's like your mother full of love, you're 3 years of age, you're doing some shararat, I'll give you a tight slap. Did she mean that she will really take that vengeance out of her heart? Right? It's like she is full of love. Momentarily she used a tool which is the Bhayanaka tool or the angry tool, and then she got back to that area. Thank you so much. I'm so sorry.
Sir, indeed, you are a master at your craft, and I would request everyone to have a huge round of applause for Mr. Vijaybahu Joshi for the wonderful session. And sir, I would request you to kindly stay at the stage. I would request Mr. Nilesh Borgarkar, Senior VP Customer Support and Service from People Interactive, to kindly felicitate Mr. Vijaybahu Joshi. Thank you so much, sir.